The University District of Seattle, with its thrumming vibrance and youthful ambition, was a stage upon which countless lives unfolded. Among these, Lynda Ann Healy stood out, a beacon of promise in a sea of striving students. Her life, seemingly pristine and unmarred, offered a curious allure, one that would eventually draw me into her orbit. Lynda was the picture of a well-ordered existence. Her days were filled with the disciplined routines of a dedicated student and a community figure. Majoring in psychology at the University of Washington, she balanced her academic pursuits with her role as a ski reporter for a local radio station. Her involvement with the university's ski team was not just a hobby, but a testament to her vigor and commitment. She lived with a group of young women in a modest but comfortable shared basement apartment, each of them pursuing their dreams with the naive assurance that the world was theirs for the taking. I first noticed Lynda in the fall of 1973. Her vibrant energy, coupled with an endearing modesty, made her stand out. She was not ostentatious or attention-seeking, but carried herself with a quiet confidence that spoke volumes. My observations were not the casual glances of a passerby, but the meticulous study of a hunter assessing his prey. I understood her routines, her haunts, her circles of friends. Each detail I gleaned was a piece of the puzzle, a step closer to the inevitable encounter. January 31st, 1974 was an unremarkable day in Seattle, the air thick with the promise of rain. Lynda's day unfolded with the usual predictability. Classes in the morning, work in the afternoon, followed by an evening spent with friends. She returned to her apartment late, her laughter still echoing in the stairwell as she bid her friends goodnight. She could not have known that her ordinary day was about to culminate in a night that would etch her name into the annals of history. My preparation was meticulous. The door to her apartment was a flimsy barrier, more symbolic than functional, a testament to the false sense of security that permeates such close-knit living spaces. The lock was a simple mechanism, easily manipulated by one who had spent years mastering the art of entry without consent. I waited until the lights dimmed and the quiet settled over the apartment, signaling that its inhabitants had succumbed to the oblivion of sleep. Entering her room was a moment of sublime tension, a juncture where anticipation met reality. Lynda lay in her bed, her breathing rhythmic, her form serene under the pale moonlight filtering through the curtains. It was a tableau of innocence, a stark contrast to the dark intent that had brought me there. The act itself was one of calculated precision. The blow to her head was delivered with a force that was neither excessive nor insufficient, enough to render her unconscious, but not to kill. Death, after all, was not the immediate objective. The room held a stillness, a sacred quietude that followed the violence. There was a peculiar intimacy in the aftermath, an unspoken communion between predator and prey. I gathered her lifeless form with the care one might afford a sleeping child, draping her over my shoulder as I exited the apartment. The streets were deserted, the city wrapped in the embrace of night. My car, parked discreetly a block away, became the vessel for our final journey together. The destination was a secluded area, chosen for its isolation and the privacy it afforded. The handling of her body was methodical, a ritualistic disposal that was both a practical necessity and a symbolic act. Each movement, each decision, was governed by an unspoken code, a set of principles that guided my actions and ensured the continuation of my dark endeavors. Lynda's disappearance was swift to ignite a frenzy. Her absence was a ripple in the fabric of her community, a tear in the tapestry of normalcy. Friends, family, and authorities mobilized, their efforts driven by a desperate hope that she might be found. that she might return to the life she had been so abruptly torn from. But hope, in such circumstances, is often a futile exercise, a clinging to the frayed edges of denial. The media painted Lynda as a tragic figure, a promising young woman whose life had been cut short by an unknown terror. They spoke of her virtues, her aspirations, her impact on those around her. Each report was a eulogy, a tribute to a life that had become a cautionary tale. But to me, Lynda was more than a victim. She was a symbol, an embodiment of the duality that defines human existence. The juxtaposition of light and shadow, of innocence and corruption. Reflecting on that night, I am struck by the interplay of control and chaos, of the meticulous planning that culminated in an act of raw brutality. There's a certain artistry to it, a choreography of violence that is both deliberate and instinctive. It is this duality, this convergence of order and disorder, that defines the essence of my actions. Lynda Ann Healy's story is one of many in a broader narrative, a tapestry of encounters that speak to the darker inclinations of human nature. Each victim is a chapter, each act a verse in the unfolding saga of a life lived in the shadows. My recollections are not born of remorse, but of a desire to understand, to articulate the motivations and impulses that drive one to commit such acts. In the quiet moments when the world is still and the mind turns inward, I ponder the legacy of that night. Lynda's name, etched into the collective memory of a community, serves as a reminder of the fragility of life and the ease with which it can be extinguished. Her story is a testament to the thin veneer of security that separates the mundane from the macabre, a reminder that beneath the surface of everyday life lies a darker undercurrent, waiting to surface. As the years pass, the details of that night remain vivid. A tableau etched into the recesses of my mind. It is a memory that exists not in isolation, but as part of a continuum, a series of events that define the trajectory of a life lived on the edge of darkness. Lynda Ann Healy was more than a name, more than a statistic. She was a life, a promise, a dream, and in the end, a reflection of the shadows that dwell within us all.